This is Viterbi Voices, your chance to hear stories about research, classes, student life, and more.
Directly from our students, faculty, and other members of our engineering community. All right here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
Welcome back to Viterbi Voices. I am one of your hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma. I am the Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And my name is Audrey Roberts. I'm a senior studying mechanical engineering here at USC.
And joining us once again is Sheetal. Sheetal, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sheetal. I'm a senior. I'm studying chemical engineering, and I'm originally from Guangzhou, China.
And Sheetal, what is the episode you are bringing for us here today?
So this is actually a recording of a live chat we did last week on research and projects in engineering. So I got together with about 4 other current Viterbi students and just asked them about the research they're doing on campus remotely now, and their experiences kind of with how they got involved with all of those things.
Very cool, very cool. I know a lot of students have interest in doing research when they're involved in undergraduate studies. Oftentimes we get questions, what's the research I can get involved in? The answer is pretty much everything, but it's always good to hear from students that are doing it, to hear about the work they're doing, how they got involved in it, and all that. So why don't we get out of the way and get straight into this recording of the recent live chat session on research and special projects.
So first things first, we want to welcome each of you to the Research and Projects and Engineering live chat for USC Viterbi, brought to you by real-life engineering students such as ourselves. So this panel of current engineering students will kick it off by introducing themselves. They will then be answering questions that you submit on the webinar Q&A feature, which you should be able to see right now at the bottom of the screen. Please don't submit any questions just yet. We'll be asking for those in a couple minutes. The theme for today is research and projects in engineering. This includes student involvement in faculty supervised undergraduate research, as well as personal initiatives to pursue hands-on engineering. Since our panelists are speaking primarily on these topics, we encourage you to later ask questions that are more related on these topics. As current students, we are only here to share a student perspective of life at USC Viterbi and cannot answer the majority of admission-related questions. Please direct those to our admission staff at viterbi.admission@usc.edu. If you are viewing this live chat from YouTube or viewing it at a later date, please don't worry. You can still send us questions and learn more about being a student at Viterbi by emailing us at vstudent@usc.edu. We may not get to emailed questions during this session, but one of us will follow up with a response. At the end of the session, we'll spend a few minutes going over how to get in touch with the Viterbi admission office and stay in touch with us as students. So hi everyone, it's lovely to see you all here. My name is Sheetal. I use pronouns she, her, and I'll be hosting today's live chat as well as relaying all of your questions to our panelists. I am a senior from Guangzhou, China, studying chemical engineering with a minor in political science. On campus, I've been involved in undergrad research for several years, and I've worked in labs ranging from nanotechnology, environmental engineering, and environmental policy. I'd now like to welcome our panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Radhika.
Hi everyone, my name is Radhika. I use pronouns she and her. I am a junior studying electrical and computer engineering from Ventura, California, and I've been doing undergrad research since my sophomore year at USC, and I'm currently doing research in the Autonomous Networks Research Group under Professor Krishnamachari.
Thanks, Radhika. Next up, we have Paul.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a junior studying computer engineering and computer science with a minor in applied computer security, and I'm currently in El Paso, Texas. On campus, I've been involved with 2 research labs, one in the Roussier School of Education and another one a cybersecurity lab within Viterbi. In addition to that, I'm also part of the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexia Romani and my pronouns are she and her. I'm a junior in industrial and systems engineering, and I also have a minor in product design. I'm from Burlingame, California, which is about 20 minutes north out of San Francisco. And I'm currently working in the Mesh-Kadi Complex Systems Research Lab.
Finally, we have Austin.
Hello. My name's Austin. I am a junior studying biomedical engineering with the cellular molecular emphasis, so just small scale biomedical engineering. And for research, I've started this last summer in the McCain Laboratory for Living System Engineering, which works a lot with tissue engineering.
And finally, I'd like to introduce our moderators who will be behind the scenes responding to questions that you submit during the Q&A that don't get answered on screen.
Hi everyone, I'm Domini, pronouns she, her. I'm a senior studying biomedical engineering from Kahului, Hawaii. On campus, I do molecular imaging research for Zavaleta Lab in the Michelson Center for Convergent Bioscience.
Hi everyone, I'm Christina, pronoun she, her. I am a senior studying environmental engineering. On campus, I do research in the environmental engineering department, studying emergent wastewater treatment technology.
Hi everyone, I'm Gianna. I am a sophomore studying computer science business admin, and I am from Phoenix, Arizona. On campus, I'm involved in research in the interaction lab under Professor Maya Maderick, where I'm studying affective gesturing in robots.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name's Emily Powis and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a junior studying biomedical engineering from Denver, Colorado, and on campus I've been involved with research since my freshman year in a biomedical research lab focused on 3D ultrasound development.
All right, we'll now be moving on to the Q&A portion. It is time to submit your questions. If you are watching this webinar live, we encourage you to submit questions through the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And if you're viewing this from YouTube or at a later date, you can email us your questions to vstudent@usc.edu for answers at a later date. We want you all to know that a few years ago, we were in the exact same position you all are in now, figuring out how to apply to college and where you might want to spend the next 4 years. That's why we're here to answer your questions and speak about our experiences as candidly as possible. We can talk about our involvements in research and how we think about hands-on engineering and how these involvements relate to our majors, our careers, and our other interests on campus. So let us know what you're interested in learning about by submitting your questions below. So just to jump right in, I would like to ask all our panelists to talk a little bit more about the research you're involved in. What lab do you work in? What kind of projects have you worked on? Just so our attendees have an idea of the type of research you do on campus.
Sure, I can get started. So I've also worked in another lab before the one I'm working in right now, and that was with Professor Penkova in the mechanical engineering department. And I started research my sophomore year with her, and I worked on a project called a gauze ring, and it basically is a finger tracking device that is connected to a computer screen, and it can track your finger motion. So that involved a little bit of programming and 3D printing as well, and lots of physics and electromagnets. And then my current research is with Professor Krishnamachari in the ANRG lab. And over the summer, I worked on a COVID-19 related project where I was simulating respiratory droplets that are transmitted every time a person coughs, breathes, or even sneezes. And then now I'm working on a project that looks at communication within engineered systems. So we're simulating two artificial agents and seeing how they move around in an artificial environment and how they talk to each other.
I can go next. I will try to follow that as best as I can. So I started research my freshman year, second semester, and it was actually not within Viterbi. It was within the Rosier School of Education, and that's just because I'm really interested in how we gain knowledge as humans and how we apply that knowledge later on and how it affects us. So my research there was mostly focused on elementary school students and the process of them learning fractions. And it was really interesting because the whole point was the professor was focused on how they learn fractions and how it later affected their development in STEM. So if you don't know the basics of that, how does that later affect you, because they're used everywhere, right? So that was really interesting. And then after that, I obtained another research position in May of my freshman year, and I was there all summer. And it's with the cybersecurity lab called STEEL, the STEEL Security Lab, and that is within Viterbi. And with that, I also focused in education as well. So I was trying to help my professor track the way that we learn as cybersecurity students and how we can improve the process of doing that and how we can give students better resources while doing different homework assignments as such, so that they could be at higher retention rate within our school and other universities that were also involved in the project.
I can follow. So my topic right now is taking a human factors approach to analyze biosafety level 3 and 4 labs to essentially try and prevent any possible like pathogen leaks. So it was actually inspired by COVID-19, and I got started on that in like late May of this year, and I've just been working on it since. So I applied for both the summer research and am now still working on it in school. And I'm just working alongside one of my professors, who's Professor Meshkati. And my research is a little different than other people's because it's very much like online journal research based. So there's not actually a physical lab at USC to do it.
And I've gotten to start research this summer as part of a Viterbi summer research program where I'm working completely online with a lab that's all in person, the Laboratory for Living System Engineering, which works a lot in creating models to basically simulate human systems like heart systems and kidney systems, but not with an actual kidney or an actual heart. It's like with a little device where you're able to actually like test how well blood flow is going, how well like pharmaceutical drugs are being absorbed or not absorbed. And I've been doing a lot of computer work in MATLAB mostly to essentially both check how well like a human heart cell is beating and measure and calculate all the forces going on. And now we're working in another program to count how well kidney cells are reabsorbing pharmaceutical drugs, basically by counting how many of the receptors and cells that are in any image that we're taking.
You mentioned the summer research program, Austin. I actually also started working in a new lab at Viterbi over the summer through that program, which was funded, which is really great. So I've conducted research in a couple different labs on campus. For my freshman and sophomore year, I worked in a nanotechnology and material science lab where I looked at how to make materials that were used for rocket engines harder by heat treating them. And then I eventually realized material science wasn't really for me. And since last summer, I've been working in two different labs, one that focuses on environmental engineering and strategies to mitigate the heat rise in Los Angeles County. And the other one focused more on environmental policy. So it's actually not in the Viterbi School of Engineering, but it looks at urban policies in India and how they affect environmental consequences. So we're gonna actually take a live question now. So someone in the chat asked, how difficult is it to get involved with an undergraduate research? Thank you for your question, Andrew, and panelists. What are your thoughts?
There are so many avenues. You can take, you can either go the route where you're only applying to like the actual programs that are brought to you, like, hey, you should sign up under this program and then we'll get you involved in a lab. You can just pay attention to a professor in a class that you really, really like and make sure that you're keeping up a connection with them and pay attention if they say, hey, I'm looking for a lab researcher, undergraduate lab researcher. You can get that foot in the door by following that professor that you really like. And then also, I know a lot of people who just emailed out to a whole bunch of professors that they were interested in, just to throw out that possibility. And I know a lot of people who just found research in that way. So there's a lot of avenues, and if you're willing to go search them out, it's very easy to get into a lab. At least in my experience.
Yeah, you definitely covered that really well, Austin. I think everyone kind of agrees.
Yeah, literally nothing else to say.
Yeah, exactly. It's more just, taking a little bit of initiative, reaching out to people, because I think research is something that professors are really, really open to having undergraduate students come into, even with no experience. I guess that can be our next question. Did you guys come into your labs with kind of any prior knowledge about those topics? Did you know that was always something you wanted to research when you left high school, or how was that kind of process?
Oh no, I knew nothing coming in. So like I mentioned, the first lab that I joined wasn't even within Viterbi. So all I knew is that I was really interested in the whole learning experience. And I thought that maybe I wanted to do a minor within the Rosier School of Education. And I just started to like look up at different resources, and I came across a professor that I worked with, and I really liked what she was doing. I thought it was really interesting. I emailed her to set up a meeting, And then during the meeting, we talked. The email that I sent her was just, hey, can I talk about your research? Because I'm trying to see if I can do a minor in rows here, and it will really help you make a decision. And then we were talking, and then at the end of the conversation, I was like, do you have any work for me? I would volunteer with you because I'm really interested. I would love to work for you. And she actually asked me why. And her first thought was, you're an engineering student, like why? Like it wasn't like, oh no, you can't. But she was just curious. And I just told her, well, I don't know much about education, but I want to learn. And here I am, So no, I knew nothing. I didn't know much about cybersecurity at the time. I hadn't established my minor yet in cybersecurity. That's the one I currently have. So yeah, it was a whole experience.
Yeah, I really didn't know anything about my topic either. I'd known the professor for a while, and he sent out an email to some of the students that he has closer connections to, just kind of throwing out the idea of our research, and was like, if you'd be interested, feel free to let me know. And I literally responded. It was like, I don't know if I'm totally qualified, but am interested. And turns out didn't matter at all. No one really knew what they were doing to begin with. And just to kind of emphasize that I never really saw myself honestly doing research. It wasn't a major deciding factor for me when I was a senior in high school, especially because I just always thought of it as one of those things that's so serious. It's doesn't allow for room for error. And I tend to shy away from things like that. But that's generally just not the case whatsoever. It's been a really big learning process, and I've made a lot of mistakes, but none of them are the end of the world.
I completely agree. I think over the summer, I started this new research project. And so my professor said, we're going to be using Python. And I didn't really know much about Python. I had used it maybe a couple times, but it was a great learning opportunity to learn a new programming language. And definitely by the end of the project, I feel so much better about my Python skills and just learning new things on my own, looking up documentation, debugging code with error, learning so many new skills, which is really amazing. And also learning how to read research papers. I had never read a proper research paper before, end to end. And I realized how important it is to read it multiple times. And it's okay to not get all the information after just reading it once. So many valuable lessons. And you don't really need to have experience in any of those. Just kind of dive in and get started and learn through that experience.
I definitely have a little bit different of a avenue towards research than most people I know, where I came into USC knowing I was going to do the cellular molecular emphasis, and I came into USC planning to get a PhD and be a professor and do research as much as possible throughout my undergraduate career. And so I started research this last summer going into my junior year. And I knew that it was something I was interested in, and I had actually met my professor that I'm now working under through a outreach project that I did as part of the Associated Students of Biomedical Engineering, with ASBME, which is just the Biomedical Engineering Club. And I was able to work with her a little bit, and that was kind of able to get my name in the door, where when I applied to the program, then she was like, hey, let's put you in the lab. And so in terms of the actual content of the lab, I do not know any of the actual specifics coming into the lab, but the professor that I had I still have, was very, very willing to teach us, willing to let us take our time to figure things out. And I think that has been really helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely echo what everyone said. And I've joined multiple labs, and every single lab I joined, I knew nothing much about going in. So, I just keep learning new things. And that's kind of one of my favorite things about research. My current environmental policy lab that I'm working in, I've been there since May. And even now in November, my professor will ask me to do things where I'm like, I don't really know how to do this. This is new. I'm doing budget analysis right now. I've never ever done that before. So I think the best part about research is that you're constantly learning, and you constantly don't really know what you're doing, but that's kind of the beauty of it.
Yeah, totally agree.
I agree.
And our next question is one that Braden brought up. So thank you for your question, Braden. With the vigor of Viterbi, how hard is it to balance school, research, a social life, and all your other involvements? And how much time are you thus able to devote to research on a weekly basis?
It's definitely a pretty large time commitment, and it kind of varies, honestly, just my week in terms of school. I also have another internship on the side, so I have like a lot going on and try to somewhat spend time with my roommates. Um, but I'd say like some weeks I'm spending like 10 hours, but I really try to do it so it's only like kind of like a 2 hour like period per day. It's just like it's essentially like another class. Like I just like make room for it like I would another class. So it definitely requires good time management. You have to learn how to do that. But in general, very manageable and like I love doing it. So that's why I do it.
Yeah, I think if you find like the right research mentor and lab, it's almost something that you enjoy working on. And it doesn't feel like a chore, or even though it is kind of like an extra class, it's like something you look forward to doing and investigating and learning more about. I spent around maybe 15 to 20 hours per week over the summer working on a research project, which was really nice because that was the only thing I was doing. And I really got to think about what I was doing and learn new things. But it's definitely harder to spend that much time during the school year. So I see myself, especially this semester has been quite tough with the classes I'm taking. So I've only been able to spend maybe anywhere from like 2 to 6 hours. It kind of depends how heavy my week is. But what's great about research, and is if you have a year-long project, is when you have breaks, like December break or Thanksgiving or spring break, you can put in the extra hours and kind of catch up, which is really nice. And I know a lot of people continue to even do their research through the summer, even if they have internships and stuff.
I will also say on the other side of that is if you don't want to do the research on spring break, you can just tell your mentor no. So the difference between someone that is trying to get their PhD and you is that this is not your full-time job. So I had this conversation a couple of times when I would just either school was really hard, so I would talk to my primary investigator, my PI, and she would ask me sometimes, hey, how is school going, you know? And if I said it was really rough, I would just tell her that, and we would agree that I would only work 2-3 hours that week, you know, so I could catch up on schoolwork. And same way, if I did not want to work on spring break, I would just let her know a few weeks in advance. She would say that's fine. So yeah, that's that. That's also a possibility.
A Google Calendar is your best friend, really. Just making sure that you know what's going on when, making sure that you leave some time out for yourself. But it does come down to personal priorities. And again, as others said, like the professors don't expect a regimented schedule 1,000,000% during the school year because they know that we're all undergrads and we have a quickly changing schedule in life and things come up and things happen. So they're not expecting complete like 10 to 15, 20 hours a week. They're expecting somewhere around 10 or less, but they're very open to move things around. And again, personal priorities and what you want to do with your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely echo that. I think I spend between maybe 5 to 6 hours a week on research in any given week. It sometimes dips if I have particularly heavy midterms. And I think it kind of just depends on how you structure your time. The way that's worked for me has been, just Sundays are my research days. So I spend all of my Sundays just doing research and, my other days doing my other homework. But again, that kind of depends on what type of lab you're in. Since I'm in a political science lab this semester, it's very much more something I can just kind of do at home whenever. I don't really have to go into a lab. So it very much does depend on what kind of lab setting you find yourself in. Kind of on that note, we had a question in the chat from Charlotte who asks, what is the day in the lab like? Even though I'm sure it varies by topic and by department, what does your average day in the lab look like when you're doing research?
I've never done an actual physical day in lab. So for me, my typical day of lab is turn on my computer, open MATLAB, and get work done. And that's definitely super variable, but it can, I can't speak to it too much, but I know some people who will go in like once a week and do like 5 hours, or they'll go in like every day of the week for an hour. So it again, everything's kind of variable to each person.
I had a little bit different experience because for the cybersecurity lab, I was actually based on the Information Science Institute, ISI, which is one of the other two big research facilities outside the USC main campus. And that's actually located in Marina Del Rey, which is around a 45-minute to 1 hour drive. So USC has a bus that takes you there, so you don't have to pay anything. It rotates every 45 minutes or something like that, so you don't have to worry. But at first, I tried to go like twice a week, and that's 45 minutes wasted getting there, an hour wasted getting back because of the traffic, because I would get back later. And then I talked to my advisor, and she actually suggested that I didn't have to come in every single time I wanted to do work. So she just said, your work, since you're a computer science student, you can just do it online, and we just have to meet once a week. So you only have to come in once a week at some point, hopefully during our meeting times, and then I just meet with you one-on-one. And then that I did that for a semester, and then the second semester that I worked with her, I actually didn't go to the lab because it was too much. So I would just attend the meetings through Zoom and then talk with her through Zoom and things like that. So that's the way that I did it. But yeah.
Yeah, before the pandemic, I would normally go in maybe once or twice a week just to work on the hardware components, play around with the 3D printer. And then on Fridays, we would have our like weekly meetings, research-wide meetings with the professor, and she would kind of have us all talk about what we've done in the week and give any updates. And then the new lab that I'm working in, I've only worked on it virtually, but even when I go back, I think it's pretty much you can do most of the coding work on your own and just come in like once a week to check in with your advisor. It's pretty flexible.
So I had different experiences based on which labs I was working in. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about my first lab. So that was one where I was working on nanotechnology and material science. So for that one in specific, it was a very hands-on lab. So I had to come into lab every time I wanted to work on something. I didn't really have a remote aspect of that. So I was glad because I was in Ronald Tudor Hall, which is kind of the main engineering building on campus, and it has a really great cafe attached to it. So I'd usually make a whole day whenever I had a couple hours to go into lab. I'd come in, grab some lunch, go to lab, meet my PhD mentors. And for me, that usually involved maybe an hour or two of independent research where I was kind of working on my assigned project, maybe an hour of kind of observing / shadowing an older lab member when they're working on a piece of equipment that I wasn't familiar with. And then typically about a half hour discussing kind of my tasks and my responsibilities for the next week or two. So kind of a mix of different things. And I would definitely go in for longer hourly periods because it's easier, I think, to log in and log out for an hour than it is to kind of show up to lab, make sure you have all of your protective equipment on. And then if you're leaving an hour, it just kind of seems not really worth it. So I used to do my lab in big chunks. All right, our next question is going to be, we've gotten a couple different questions asking about how research fits in with your major, with your department, with your post-graduation plans. And if you guys could talk a little bit about whether you're doing research in your department or outside your department, how you kind of see that fitting into maybe what you're thinking about post-graduation or why you think it was a useful thing for you to get involved with at college.
I'm involved directly in my own apartment. Actually, my principal investigator actually is teaching one of the upper graduate classes that I'm going to take next year. So I'm directly where I'm planning to be. I'm on this single track course that I've planned out for myself. And so for me, because I'm planning to do a graduate degree, research fits in super, super well because that's something that a lot of the people that I'm going to be submitting applications to are really looking for. And so I'm just kind of continuing on this direct track. And that's kind of what works for me and what I want is to delve deeper into my specific topic.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page where the professor who I'm working under is also teaching my current class, which is human factors and work design. And as I mentioned, my research revolves around human factors. So I'm actually really lucky. And he we have like a term project, which is basically a paper you have to write throughout the semester for our class. And he's just letting me like do my research and then write my term paper about my research. So it fits in really well and really nicely because a lot of it just in general, research, a lot of it is like project management and kind of like taking, like really gaining like skills of like independence and like taking initiative on things. And so both the fact that it fits into my schedule and I also want to go into project management after school is definitely helping in terms of career.
The first lab I joined was actually in the mechanical engineering department, which is separate from electrical engineering. But I was working on, there was like different sub teams for the project. So there was the coding side, there was the mechanical side, and then the EE side, which is the circuit component and the hardware. So that's the team that I was working on, even though it was in a different department. Then I realized that I wanted to transition to having a research mentor who is actually in my field. And I was taking a class last spring. It's called EE 250, which is Distributed Systems and the Internet of Things, with Professor Krishnamachari. And I loved the way he taught the class. I really connected with him and the amazing things he's done in his lab. So I started researching with him in April. And so that's more in my field. And I think over the summer, the project I worked on, it really made me realize that I want to pursue a career in research, and now I'm looking into applying to a PhD program next year, which is something I never thought I would be interested in, but just getting involved in research, and I loved it so much, and I loved the freedom of it and the vastness of it, and there's so much unknown to discover.
With me, I think I mentioned this, but I'm not currently working at a lab anymore. So the cybersecurity lab, I worked there for 1 year, so from May to May. So I finished working there this past May. And to be honest, so the first lab that I joined was in the School of Education because I wanted to pursue a minor in that. So I thought, I wanted to give it a try. And I realized that I really loved it, but maybe a minor in that wasn't for me. And then I decided, what about cybersecurity? I've always been interested since I was in high school. It's a cool topic, sounds amazing, but I just don't know anything about it. So that's why I tried to join a cybersecurity lab to gain that experience. And from that, I realized that I really enjoyed the topic. I enjoyed the project that I did. I finished the project with my professor, but then I realized I wanted to focus on other things afterwards. I maybe want to go into industry. So that's when I stopped working for that professor, but I did realize that cybersecurity was something that I was really interested in, and I'm currently still pursuing that minor. So that's how it helped me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about what Paul just said, and I think overall, research is a great way to pursue your interests in general that are not being fulfilled by classes. So for me, it's like, I want to delve deeper into this specific subject, so I'm going to do research in that subject. But I've even heard about someone in the biomedical engineering degree that's done research in aerospace because they really are interested in seeing like biological systems in space. And that's not something that you're going to get a class on, but that's a fantastic way to pursue those interests.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely echo that. I think for me, while I thought about graduate school a little bit, despite having done research for pretty much all semesters I've been at USC, that's not really something that I think I necessarily took out of my research positions. So it definitely isn't the case that if you want to go get a job, doing research isn't helpful or useful or fulfilling, because that's kind of where I'm at. For me, it's kind of just been a really interesting, like Austin mentioned, balance to my classes. So for example, I'm in mostly engineering classes this semester, and while that's interesting and a good use of brain power, the fact that I can spend my Sundays kind of disengaging from all of that and reading, literature reviews of urban policies in India just is such a mentality shift that I love it as a balance to my classes. So I almost think of research as kind of being something that's really different. And, to answer the question about whether research is within your department or major, for me, it never has been the case that it was part of my major. I never really worked in a very traditional chemical engineering lab. My first lab was focused a lot more on mechanical engineering, and then now I work in environmental engineering and political science. So for me, it's kind of that counterbalance that makes research really, really valuable. Kind of on that front, some of you guys have talked about how you want to go into graduate school and therefore how research as a whole is really useful. Could you talk a little bit about maybe the skills that you feel like research really helps you build that you think would be useful in your future post-graduation lives?
Personally, so for the cybersecurity one, like I mentioned, I knew nothing of cybersecurity. the idea sounded cool. So I tried to pursue it. That's to be completely honest with you. But then I joined, and I was pretty much one of the only undergraduates within the lab. It was only someone else and me, and that other person was a senior at the time. And I remember going in and then telling the professor already knew that I knew nothing was cybersecurity. She knew, right? And then at first she gave me like some of her past assignments to work on, so that I could get used to it, like the class that she teaches. And then after that, she just sat me down. She said, "Okay, Paul, here's what I want you to do." And she gave me maybe 3 sentences of the project she had in mind for me. And she said, "There you go. Any questions, let me know." And I was expecting a PhD student or a master's student to be like watching over me, because I was a freshman at the time. So most of my assignments had been very specific of, here's the big idea, but here are the necessary steps to complete it. But she didn't do that. She was used to PhD students, master's students that were kind of had more freedom. So that's all she gave me. So for around a month, I just had to like figure all that out by myself. And it really taught me how to see a problem and break it down, break every single thing down in order to figure it out. Because I didn't have that skill at the time. Because a lot of things were just, I don't want to say like handed to me, but I was guided a lot throughout the process at that point. So yes.
Just to build off on that, I think some of the high level things that you learn from doing research is how to grow as an engineer and be independent, because a lot of the things that you're working on either haven't been done before, or there isn't clear kind of instruction guide on how you're supposed to approach it. So it's a lot of like figuring out, you'll have a lot of conversations in your head, like, should I do this? Should I not do this? Like, where am I going with this? And it helps you build confidence in yourself and like the knowledge that you know. And also how to think critically, like when you see a paper or another person's work, like how can you extend that? How can you make changes to that? What could you have done differently? So just overall, I think it helps you think more outside the box and bigger picture. But then also when you actually have to tackle a project, there's several technical skills that you will also learn in the process depending on your project.
Yeah, I definitely feel like for me, the soft skills have actually been somewhat more important than the hard skills, which is not, I think, something that a lot of engineers think about when they enter research. They kind of figure, oh, research is going to help me get good at this piece of equipment and this specific engineering topic, and I'm going to become a subject matter expert, and I'm going to work in that field. And that's kind of how that works. And like that works for some people, but I also think there's a lot of unexpected skills that you kind of get out of research. I think patience is a really big one. Like Radhika mentioned, when you're working on something that no one's really worked on before, sometimes it doesn't work. Oftentimes it does not work. And you go, well, I guess I got to try something else. So I think patience and being able to adjust kind of how you look at solving a problem based on whether things work or not is kind of one of my biggest takeaways from research. Because there is no right answer. It's kind of up to you to figure out what the answer is supposed to be. And that's something that is different to your engineering classes typically, where there is a very clear-cut solution. So it definitely takes some getting used to, but I think it's a valuable big picture, like you said, mentality to have. So this is kind of more of a holistic question, but what is something about research that maybe surprised you that you didn't really think about going in?
I'll skip that one because I feel like my answer for the last question applies very clearly to this one. So I'll let someone else handle it.
I kind of answered it earlier on as well, but like just to emphasize the fact that as I mentioned previously, like I just thought it would be something that required a lot of previous knowledge about the subject. And it was really surprising to me how little it mattered, your knowledge about the subject. Like my topic is very much like industrial and systems engineering based, but there's like CS majors working on it. There's business majors working on my team. So just the fact that it doesn't matter whether or not you know much information about it going in is really surprising to me.
We actually, on the topic of teams, we have a question from Kendall. Do you find that the research you've done is primarily independent, or is there a lot of room for collaboration in the labs you've worked in?
I think it's definitely dependent on your professor and on the labs themselves, because there are projects that, you've got PhD students that have worked on it for 3 years and they don't really have a need for another person to join. But then in my case, I've kind of been guided here and there by a PhD student, and all of my projects have actually been done in tandem with another undergraduate student. So at least in that case, I've got another person who also doesn't really know what's going on to bounce back off of and really figure things out with. But it's definitely dependent. I found that I've worked pretty much primarily only in small groups, occasionally working with PhD and grad students in the labs if we need some sort of guidance for one specific piece.
Yeah, I think definitely the fact that it varies from lab to lab is a really big point. And maybe that's something that you kind of consider when you decide which kind of lab you want to join. Maybe asking more about how collaborative it is, whether you'd be working on your own project or with other people, is something to keep in mind. Because sometimes it's nice to have like a mentor figure, but sometimes you also kind of want to do your own thing. If you guys had to give one piece of advice for prospective students who are interested in, getting to USC, getting to Viterbi, and joining a lab their first semester, which is very much feasible, like we've talked about, what would be one piece of advice that you would like to give them?
I would definitely say that I really recommend just like showing a genuine interest in your professor's research and kind of getting that relationship off the bat, because that's how I got mine. And in general, people just, if you show that you are interested in something that they're working on, they definitely feel more inclined and willing to help you get there too. So just showing that genuine interest from the start makes them really happy. And then one other thing that I did, and this isn't something you would need to do, it definitely depends on circumstances too, but I was applying through Viterbi to work with my professor, but I told him from the start, like, even if I don't get it, like, technically through Viterbi, like, if I don't get, like, a stipend, could I just, like, work alongside and, like, assist you in any possible way? And he was like, of course. And there's a lot of people, especially freshmen on my team, who aren't actually, like, doing it through Viterbi's program, rather just asked our professor if they could just, like, assist us in any way possible. So just show interest and, like, yeah.
I think going to office hours just to talk to your professors is a great way. I mean, they're such cool people, and especially things being virtual, like if you just pop in and like talk to them about their career and their path, there's so much advice that they have to give to you. And especially if you're interested in that field, that's a great way to start making connections. Or just sending them like quick emails after class, like, hey, I really enjoyed like what we learned in class today. And like start building that relationship, because it really helps, and they get to know you better, and we'll get to know your interests and what you're good at, and then can give you projects that you can succeed at and enjoy.
I have a different take on this. My take is maybe wait one semester, maybe don't do research for a semester. Some people do it and they love it. I know a lot of people that do it. But if you're not extremely sure, or you are a little bit worried about the transition from high school to college, which is a big transition, you live by yourself now, you're maybe in a dorm, you're sharing a room with someone, all of these classes, there's a lot going on. And maybe just give yourself some time to get used to it before you jump right into a 5, 10, 15-hour commitment. I don't know how that specific lab works that you want to work for, but maybe just give yourself some time, breathe, experience some things at the university, maybe some classes, some clubs. And then if you see that it's still something that interests you, then go ahead and do it your second or third semester. That would be my advice. I started my second semester freshman year, so I didn't even wait that long. But I did give myself that one semester time to just relax and get used to it before I jumped in, because it is a big commitment.
That's what I did too. I wanted to wait past my freshman year to figure things out. My sophomore year ended up being an RA, and trying to do RA and school and involvements and research was probably not a good idea for me. So then my plan was to start this summer, and then the world turned upside down, and it still worked out for me to do research. My advice for freshmen would be, don't feel pressured that you have to do research. If you want to do research, do it. but don't feel like you have to do it first semester freshman to make your life better in the future. And if you do start, I think if you're gonna start freshman year, definitely take that opportunity to explore your possibilities. Because you're starting so early, you have time to change labs, you have time to figure things out, right? So explore your possibilities, explore a research area that you're maybe not sure you like. And then if you don't like it, you can change. And if you love it, you can stay there for 4 years.
I completely agree. I think sometimes people feel like because you're doing engineering, to do hands-on engineering, you have to do research, and you have to do research all 4 years, and you have to be in the same lab, because how else are you going to become really, really good at that one thing you really want to be good at? And I think all of that's a narrative and a myth. And, so my advice is to kind of let yourself explore things. And if you don't like it, you don't have to continue. You can stop working in the lab if it's a subject you don't really like. I did that after 2 years. It took me 2 years to convince myself that I didn't love the research I was doing, because I was like, maybe I'll just, after another semester, I'll like it more if I get better at it. And I did get better at it, but I didn't really like it that much more. So let yourself explore things and let yourself be okay with not liking the subject matter and not liking research. Like maybe you come in and you're dead sure you want to get a PhD when you leave college, and you do research for a year and you just don't like the environment, but you love, for example, the student org that you're in that works on designing air. I don't know how the design teams work, that works on designing vehicles. You can change your involvements to reflect your new interests, and don't feel like you have to stay stuck to research for the entire 4 years if that's something you join really early on. So my advice is always treat college and involvements that include research very fluidly. Let them come and go as you please. All right. Thank you guys all. I think those were all really good pieces of advice that I kind of wish someone had told me my freshman year, because I definitely jumped in my second semester with absolutely no idea what I was getting into with research. So this is great that you guys kind of have this wisdom to impart. We have time for one more question. So a question that we get a lot on these live chats is kind of, why did you choose USC? And you can talk about that as it relates to your research experience, or not at all, because like you said, a lot of us didn't really think we'd get involved with research. But for all our panelists, why USC?
I mean, I don't have this like crazy story of like, oh, I've wanted to go to USC my entire life, because that wasn't the case. I just happened to apply, and I was really interested in the school, and I chose USC number one because I got in, but also, I wanted to come to USC because I was paying attention to the major that I really wanted had the emphasis in small scale engineering. And that was something I was super interested in. And I knew about the research being so open to, all these professors are super open to have undergrads do research. And that was something that I really planned on exploring. And everything that we're saying about, the openness of professors and things, like, we're not just lying, like this is the reality. And that's why I was so excited to come to USC. And I'm really glad that I'm here, because I'm getting to explore all the possible avenues towards my future in a way that I don't know if every other college can do as well as USC has done for me.
Yeah, I think when I was applying to colleges and engineering schools, so I was a little bit torn between either studying physics or engineering. So I kind of applied to like half my schools as a physics major and half as engineering. But I think one thing that really stuck out to me, well, I wanted to go to school in Southern California, like being local. I knew that I wanted to like stay in California and preferably SoCal. And what I really liked about Viterbi compared to some of the other engineering schools in the area is that there's a lot of flexibility to change your major even within engineering. I know that some engineering schools, once you're kind of admitted to a major, say like computer science, it's really hard and competitive to switch majors. And also Viterbi has a great emphasis on engineering plus, which is you can pursue other interests outside of engineering. So I'm like very interested in music and singing and dance, and I thought about maybe like pursuing a minor or doing a double major. So it was really nice to see a school of engineering really give importance to that and to pursuing things outside of STEM. And of course, I love how Viterbi is pretty small. You know, there's like 400 undergrads in my class, which is really nice, which means that classes are smaller. You can have more one-on-one time with professors and really ask them questions, get their help in office hours. And it's just a really great community. So those are some of the things that I looked at when choosing USC.
Yeah, following Austin's comment about how he doesn't have the crazy story, I am that crazy story. I like wanted to go to USC since like 6th grade because my best friend's sister was actually an ISC major, and I just like I don't know why, but like seeing like her life and like just also my middle school and high school, I was there for all 7 years. It just tends to send a decent number of girls, it's an all girls school, to USC. And I would just like watch older students experience through like social media. And I just like always dreamed of it, especially because I could tell there was just like a good work-life balance and the academics are so strong. But when you're in LA and at such like a large, well-connected environment, there's always things to do when you need a break from school. And I loved how many majors there were. And then also, as you mentioned, the engineering plus aspect, like when I was touring, was something that I just loved. And I honestly didn't see at any other school I toured, I didn't see any place that emphasized that idea that you don't just have to be an engineer. There's really time to do whatever you want and to be able to take charge of those other interests, which I have done. Really into photography, and I spend a decent amount of time doing that. And then I'm also product design minor. So just like getting the best of all of the worlds, literally.
With me, I do kind of have a story actually. So my family, I am a first generation immigrant. So like my parents don't really know anything about college, right? Like my family comes from Mexico, and when I was applying, I didn't really know that many colleges, to be honest with you. I just knew the big names that people kept mentioning at my high school. I'm from El Paso, Texas. And then one time I visited some family in Los Angeles, and then my cousin knew that I was about to start applying for colleges, and he said, "Oh, have you heard about USC?" And I hadn't. And apparently he actually graduated from USC around 5-6 years ago from Viterbi as an electrical engineer. And he just started telling me about it, and I liked it, so I applied, right? I applied to USC just like all the other schools. But then right after I got accepted, my dad was talking to his boss, and he was really proud. So when his boss asked him, "Oh, how's the family doing?" my dad just said, "Oh, my son just got accepted to USC." Next day, I was in the car with my dad driving to his boss's office, and I had no idea why, because my dad didn't want to tell me. And I was so scared because I was like, what if I say something bad and he gets fired? I don't know. I was a senior in high school. My mind was just going crazy at the time. And then I get there, and then my dad was like, "Here's my boss." And I had heard of him, right, from stories that my dad told. And then I was like, "Okay, cool." And then I just started talking to him, and then he actually said that he graduated from Marshall, from the School of Business many years ago, and he just really wanted to talk to me. Apparently, he got like super excited when my dad said that I got accepted into USC. I hadn't even said yes yet. He just got really excited, so he really wanted to talk to another Trojan, and that just really got to me. And then at the end of our 20-minute conversation and of him just going off and how amazing it was, he actually looked at my dad and he said, "I know your son's gonna be really far away. El Paso and USC is like a 700-mile difference." And then he said, I know your son's gonna be really far away, but if you need anything, just let me know. If you need to take a couple of days off of work just to go visit him, let me know. If you need to take more days off just to drop him off at welcome week, I got you. Just whatever you need. And that was just so amazing to me because, first of all, I didn't really know much about USC. I had never toured the school. And also, I hadn't even said yes yet. And this man was already sure that I was going to say yes. This man was already treating my dad and myself and my whole family as part of the Trojan family. And I had no idea what's going on. So after that, it was a pretty easy decision for me, to be completely honest with you. It had nothing to do with research or engineering plus. Great things, right? Like how he helped me make my decision, but my primary thing was because of that interaction with him.
That's a really good one. That's hard to follow.
That's just so fun.
That's a really good one.
I was in the airport
Right
last
on.
summer and I was wearing a USC sweatshirt. I was in Italy and literally like the person behind me in security was like, fight on. I was like, what? Like, what?
It happens. It does happen.
It happens every single time I wear merch anywhere. It's incredible.
Yeah. Just be aware that you're entering a sort of low-key cult. That's just how it is.
A good one.
It's just how it is. It's a great one, but it kind of yeah.
That's a good point. And with that, we hope that this was an informative and helpful and hopefully kind of funny live chat tonight for all of you. And we hope you gained some insight on what undergraduate research is like at Viterbi. If you missed any of the chat, you can rewatch a recording of this entire webinar on our YouTube channel, Viterbi Student. Additionally, we would love for you to stay connected, and a great way to connect with the Viterbi admissions office is through a virtual information session. This is a great opportunity to learn more about Viterbi and learn more specifically about the application process and talk to some of our admissions officers. If you want to learn more about life as an engineering student at USC Viterbi and have more specific questions, please make sure you email us at vstudent@usc.edu, and one of us will get back to you soon with a response. Thank you again for all tuning in tonight. We really appreciate your time. Good luck on all of your college applications. Stay safe, and as always, fight on.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Sheetal, for hosting that live chat. Another one on the books.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your favorite part of this event?
For me, something that I really liked was the fact that I felt like the students dispelled a lot of misconceptions about research. A lot of people who would come into research labs had no idea they were going to be interested in those kinds of things. We had people working on all types of projects outside of their majors. And I think it was just kind of a helpful way to see the scope of research at Viterbi.
When you were coming out of high school and coming into college, what was your view or desire or idea of what research is or was going to be? And then what do you think about it now?
That's a great question. I didn't really know undergraduate research was a thing until I got to college. And then everyone said, "Are you doing research?" And I was like, what does that mean?
It's a secret club that everybody's supposed to be involved in and no one
right?
Really, it was this weird thing. Yeah, right?
And I think something I learned as well along the way was that research isn't limited to your major. I've never worked in a lab that was in my major department. I worked in a mechanical engineering lab, and I work in both an environmental engineering lab and a political science lab. So I think that for me was one of my favorite things that I've learned about research, the fact that you can do it in literally any field you're interested in.
Very cool. And research is for some and not for others. Some people like it, some people don't like it. But I'm curious on both of your thoughts on, is that something everyone should at least try, or what do we think about it when we're talking to high school students?
Yeah, I would say I think it's definitely worth trying because it's so accessible at USC. I know that's one of the primary reasons I chose USC was because I wanted to do research. And I think Viterbi's pretty unique in the fact that undergraduate research is widely available and funded oftentimes too, which is a big deal. So I think if there's a professor you like and you're interested in their work, you should definitely ask if you can, maybe even just start by touring their lab or something like that to kind of see if it's something you're interested in. I will say, I think research for me has been something just kind of a way for me to learn and get a little bit of practical experience. It's not something where I'm like going to get a PhD or writing papers or anything like that. And that's true for a lot of people though. So I would say my perspective is just keep an open mind because you might want to do research and not like it, and that's totally okay. Or it might be the other way around for you, but the opportunity's here, so you might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, I would agree. I definitely think it's a great opportunity to dabble in, but that's okay if that's all you want to do. If you do it for a semester, you realize this is really not your thing, that's really valid as well, and you can gain that hands-on experience in so many other ways. I think people kind of forget about that sometimes when they come in and immediately are like quick to rush into research. That's great, but that's definitely not necessary.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of high school students kind of think that research is the only way to get hands-on experience, and that is definitely not the case. There's so much that already happens in classes and also with student organizations, design teams, competitions. And to highlight and reiterate what Audrey said, if you don't like it, that's okay. I think I often speak to a number of first year students. They come to me halfway through saying, like, they have this like weird, timid way about it, and they don't know how to tell me that they don't like what they're doing. And I'm like, well, it could just be you're in the wrong one, right? It doesn't have to be connected to exactly what you think you're studying. It just has to be an interest of yours, or maybe the specific task you have in that specific group doesn't work for you, and that's fine too. Maybe try something else out, or just enjoy the rest of your academic experience. It's not like it's some sort of requirement, and people are not better or worse because they did or didn't do research as an undergraduate.
You could always do what I did. I switched schools for my research lab. I tried working in the Department of Political Science, and that was kind of fun. So
cool. Awesome. Well, ladies, thank you so much. And Sheetal, thank you so much for coordinating this and hosting the live chat session. This live chat series has been phenomenal. And I thank you and all the rest of our students that have been working hard to put this on every other week for our respective students. It really is a fantastic look into the lives of you all as current undergraduates. And I hope you all stay safe, because we're recording this today on your last day of class. How weird is that, right? It's your last day of class. You guys have any reflections on the semester? I'm sure you have a lot, but any initial thoughts on this really odd, weird, not cool semester?
I mean, I think this semester is definitely not what we expected for, for both of us, our last year at USC. But I also think there weren't a lot of points in this semester where it's like, oh gosh, like I really wish it were this way. Like I haven't even thought about like all the things we're missing out on, because I think it's just a new experience. I will say, like, it kind of has sucked going to class on Zoom. Like that's not the most fun to be on Zoom all day, but I think we've also learned a lot about like empathizing with others. We've learned a lot about uncertainty. Like, I don't know what next week's going to look like, and I'm okay with that. And I totally wouldn't have been a year ago. So I think I gained a lot of valuable skills from it. Were they the skills that I had, wanted and hoped to get out of the semester? Probably not, but, maybe it's better in the long run. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think for me, it's just been an interesting look into the value of time, because I remember being a little concerned about the fact that because we shortened the semester, we had a longer winter break coming up. But given how intense the semester has been, I think as we're wrapping up, I've been increasingly grateful that I do have a little bit of a break. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, the increased break, I think everybody's going to enjoy. Although it's going to be one of those things, typically how I feel about summer, right? I'm so excited the minute you guys all leave, because it's so quiet on campus. And then very quickly thereafter, you get really depressed because it's very, very empty and you want everybody to come back. And so it's this cycle, right, of how you balance out. I also realized I asked you that question at really an unfair time. I asked you that question before you go into finals. So I probably should have asked you that question when you're actually done. You're probably like, I'm not done. I'm still thinking about finals. So I apologize for that. But I wish you well. And I hope you both remain safe and hang in there. It's been a long time since we've seen each other. So hang in there, and for all of you out there, you all stay safe, and we will see you all soon.